Hello and welcome to the third of 3 videos for problem 7-9. So at this point we're actually ready to compile or compute the required. So let's start off with the patent. I've jotted down the main transactions here, but I want you to see where everything is coming from, so I'm going to walk you through it. The 263, that was provided in the second set of financials, actually in the question, shows you 263 there. So let's do 263. Now we want to capture, and we'll scroll up a little bit here, the 25,000. We're going to offset it with the 10,000. And you can see it was offset one more time down here with the 5,000. Now at this point you'll notice that the unamortized portion is $10,000, and we can see that that's true. We have 273 here, and we started off at 263, all good. Goodwill. Now this figure is coming directly from our step 2 schedule for goodwill. Let's go, what's our balance? 33,820. Done. Now let's move on to the non-controlling interest. So we're focusing really on the balance sheet here. Let's start us off. 1409 is the retained earnings amount as provided in the question. Then it also gives us additional information that their common stock has not changed since the date of acquisition, so we can safely grab this 2.2 million, and this will be very similar to other questions we experience. Now we want to add in the unamortized acquisition differential. This can be found back up here in step 2. Oh, don't run away on me, step 2. Here we are, the 225,428. Note, I have not used all the color coding, but if you are comfortable doing that and you like that visual touch, you would have this highlighted green, and so that you could grab all the quote green transactions and incorporate them here. Okay, so now let's go and grab the patent. There's going to be 2 transactions that impact the patent, so let's scroll up and find them. So we have the $9,000, which really pertains to the prior year transactions on a net basis that we need to adjust our subs-adjusted net assets. And then we will also have for the current year amortization, the $3,000, which we need to offset SANA. So we're going to take the 9,000 less the 3,000. Notice that this one's going to be a debit, this one is a credit, so we're going to have a net position of 6,000. At this point we're ready to do a quick subtotal. Let's add them all up. Then we're able to deduct our ending inventory profit. Now remember up here we had a credit to SANA, so it will end up in a deduction. So let's just take our 1,500. You can alternatively show it as a negative, whatever is easiest for you to master. And our sort of adjusted shareholders' equity will be that 3.838 million. Remember that the non-controlling interest is at 15%. Oops, let's do a multiplier here. So the non-controlling interest share will be 575,839. So now let's take a peek at retained earnings. Now, retained earnings in this question, we need to consider the fact that we've already been provided opening retained earnings. So really our goal here is to calculate consolidated retained earnings. This will be a slightly different approach than what we've seen in the past, but we just have to remember what our end goal is. In this case, it's the ending adjustment. What do we need to do then a little bit differently is also factor in anything that's hit SANI or PANI, because of course adjustments to net income will roll in to retained earnings, and that will be factored into our closing retained earnings position. So let's start off with what I consider the easier information, retained earnings. The reason why it's easy is because it's provided right in the question. So there we are, 4.8. Now let's deduct the land gain. Now remember, in this case we're starting off with the parent, so let's look for POR. Scroll on up, and here it is. So the 12.6, let's just do some formulas. There we are. We also need to capture the pour transaction from the ending inventory. Now, you may be wondering, well, why in the world are we not capturing anything from the beginning? Well, in this case, as our goal is to figure out ending consolidated retained earnings, the ins and outs that would be created here between net income and retained earnings would offset each other. So they would be a direct offset to each other and really come out to a net position of 0. Let's not make it more complicated than it already is, so we're not just going to include them. This will give us adjusted parents position. Let's start by getting my fingers to work. There we are. That looks much better. And then we are able to start with the retained earnings for Sloan. Remember that in this case we want to be using the current year's retained earnings, so year 4. Then we'll take the beginning balance, take the difference between the two, which will be 309. Then we want to go up and have a peek on what's going on for anything for SOAR or SANI. Remember that the same applies here when it goes between SOAR and SANI. It's a direct offset, so we don't even need to worry about it. Then let's see what else we have going on. We'll take another scroll up. We have that patent. Now you can see that there is some information between SANI and also SOAR. The net difference between the two here, so the 9 is for the credit to SOAR, offsetting with the 3,000 to SANI, so that is why it's going to be appearing under here as $6,000. If we want, we can do another subtotal here, or you can leave it until after any acquisition differential adjustments. We want to scroll up back to step 2, and we have our SOAR here and our SANI here. So now let's capture our SANI from our ending inventory. And let's recalculate this adjustment. 315 less the 34,000 less the 1,500 from ending inventory gives us 278,928. Now, if you're wondering how in the world did I figure out that I'm supposed to be deducting ending inventory, remember what is our goal. If we are focusing here on retained earnings or net income, a debit to net income will really reduce it. So in that case, it will be subtracted down here. Of course, Porter's balance of this 278 is 85%, so let's do that calculation. Try again. There we are. We'll make it look pretty. So Porter's percentage is 237 and 89 bucks. So on a total basis, we can't forget about our totals that we calculated up here. So we'll take the pour sort of figure and our one that we just calculated to give us a total of 5.051 million. So last but not least are long-term liabilities. Let's grab what we know. First, we have Porter's, then we want to add in Sloan's, and I'm getting this information directly from the text, and we want to offset it with what we did up here in step 2 regarding the long-term liabilities. And there we are. We have our long-term liabilities figure. So that concludes our video for problem 7-9. Hope you're having a fantastic evening. Bye-bye.